Hi guys, so today I'm going to be teaching you to how to make a 2D sphere, circle look like a 3D sphere. And I'm going to show you it from start to finish, meaning drawing process and so forth. So first things first, you're going to want to split your paper in two, because though I'm sure you can make it stretch for the entire page, I do not want to do that, and it doesn't matter if it's even or not. I mean, you can make it even. It's completely up to you. Next, we're going to be doing the ball, or circle, or sphere. And for those who can't really draw straight lines or straight circles, I sometimes even have difficulty with that. What you can do is you can get a Tupperware, or you can get a cup or a glass, and you can just turn it upside down and take your very sharp HB pencil and just draw a circle, making sure you don't dig into the paper. Like in the other videos, you keep it relatively light with the pencil markings, because you're not sure if you want the outline to show or not for the circle. And it's okay if it's not like perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a circle. But you do want to get it relatively even all the way around. And circle. And then you are going to take your ruler again, and we're going to be doing a horizon line right in the background. And this will separate our sky from our floor. And you can put it anywhere on the circle. I'm going to do mine like so. And it can be straight, it can be crooked. You just can't really have it vertical. I mean, you could, but you would have to draw it like this, because then that way you can have it sky and ground. Yeah. And then we will be doing our cast shadow, which you will be doing. So here's the thing with cast shadows, especially with spheres or circles or balls. You gotta take in the curvature of the object and make sure that you have the light coming in and then the shadow of the curve coming out. And so you gotta follow the curve of your ball, circle, sphere, whatever it is, and you gotta follow it out. And it's up to you how long you want it. I'm going to keep with our theme that we've established throughout the other two videos of long shadows. And again, it's up to you with how high up the shadow goes or how far down the shadow goes. But keep in mind, if you do like a really, really skinny shadow, you gotta represent that with the highlighting of the ball and so forth. For instance, with these two, I have the highlight coming straight in horizontally and coming out horizontally with the shadow. And it's also clearly seen of the, well, somewhat clearly seen of the shadow following the curve and following the circle. And there we have the outline. Yay! And so, again, following my usual preferred style, I'm going to start with the cast shadow, then I'm going to move to the background, then I'm going to do the actual sphere, orb, circle, ball, whatever you want to call it. And still an HB pencil, aka number 2 pencil. I just don't like to actually draw the outline with these ones. Oh, and you only need the cup for drawing the circle. So, and what I'm doing is just little circles following the edge of the circle and the cast shadow. And it's very similar to the cup one, or the mug ones. It actually follows relatively the same principles. The only thing it doesn't follow the same principles for is with color, where you'll have to actually like add in different colors and so forth. But we are not at color, because color hard. Color is very, very hard. And it's literally just tiny circles throughout the cast shadow. And I don't know if I told you why it's called a cast shadow. It's because it's literally the shadow being casted off of the object by the light source. So it's a literal link between the shadow, object, and light source. Hence why usually the light source will follow almost an exact line with the shadow. Usually, not always. For instance, if you have multiple light sources, you might have one dark shadow in between 2 lighter shadows. But that's for another video. That is not this video. This video we are focusing on our orb. And the reason why the 2 shadows would be darker in the middle is because those are where the 2 shadows would overlap. But again, another video. And I'm just doing the lines to get the base layer, or base shading of the shadow done. And base shading would be, for almost everything, the lightest color that is almost always seen throughout the picture, just laid at the just laid as a base, and you then overlap all other colors or shades on top of it. And if you need to lighten it up, or if it's not the right color, you can usually find the right color by going back to your base shading and just adding more of that. So if you ever talk about somebody, or if you ever hear somebody say a base color or base shading, especially with things like anime or cartoons, usually they are talking about the original color they laid down inside something. So, for instance, a while ago I made a black stallion for my dad, and the base color of that was actually a very light pink, and you can subtly see it throughout the image. But I just layered a whole bunch of purple, brown, black, and other colors on top of the light blush pink. It actually turned out pretty decent. And what I'm just doing is gradually adding on a layer of shading. And you keep it light. You keep it reasonably the same. In terms of force that you use for the pencil and so forth. Because you'll see as you go over it more and more with the pencil, it will get darker and darker. And that works even with the lightest pencil. And it will really frustrate you because you'll be going, but I'm using lightest pencil, why is it happening? It's because you're going over it multiple times with the pencil. And then basic cast shadow done. Now it's time for the background. And you don't have to stick with the diagonal pattern that I've done for the last few couple videos. You can have your own background. It's completely up to you. I just want to do this because it's kind of subtle. It doesn't draw away from the object, and that's something else you have to keep in mind constantly of, does my background take away from the actual object that I'm drawing? And that's something you really have to worry about and work on, especially if the object you are working on has really muted colors, whether they are dull or vibrant, whether they are kind of soft, like a soft pink or a yellow. And so, depending on the background you choose and the colors for the object you choose, or even just the shading of the object, you have to really be careful and always be thinking, okay, is the background I'm going to do going to take away from my actual object? And this is when the simple background comes in handy, because if you have too much detail in the background, that can take away from your object. But you don't want to... There's a happy medium between simplicity and complicated. Because there is some much needed depth that simplicity can reach, but there's also you can go too simple, if that makes sense. And so you just gotta find your own happy medium of what works best. The thing I also love about shading is no matter how you mess up with the lines of the actual outline, and this works with when you're like doing something along the lines of fur or scales, no matter how many times you mess up, you can always cover it up either with the background or with the texture you put onto the object. It's a good cover. You can say, oh, it's a texture I added to the background, or oh, it's the fur going a different direction, or oh, it's this nice weird pattern I put into the scales. And what's best is the viewer will never know if that is accurate or not. They will just be like, oh, if you say so. I really don't understand it. And you can hit them with something like, well, it was the artist's choice. So, hey, giving you art hacks. But nah. You can cover up a lot of mistakes you make by trying to work the pattern around it or something. But you also gotta be careful because there are certain mistakes that can't be covered up. And so you really just sometimes have to scrap it and start over. Which does stink when it happens, because you work for X amount of hours or minutes or days or weeks, and then it's just like, nope, gotta start from scratch. So that's the background. But yeah, so it can be frustrating at times if you're not careful. Point being, I'm going to get my little paper towel. And like I said for the last video, I'm going to use this to put my hand on so that I don't accidentally smudge the picture. And I'm going to just shade this. My light source is going to be coming from here. So my highlighted area is going to be a little circle. I'm going to lightly draw where the highlighted area is. You do not have to draw this. I would actually suggest you don't draw it. I'm just going to draw it for the purpose of showing you. But the little highlighted area is most likely going to be right there. And sometimes it's a little circle inside a circle. Sometimes it goes with the curve of the thing. It really depends on how big you want it. If you want it just a little blop, you can have it be a little circle. I honestly prefer it with the little curve because I feel like it looks more real that way. But this part here is what I'm talking about, how it physically becomes lighter right where the light is directed on it. And then you can see the darkness around it. Then you shade. If you need to touch up your cast shadow at any time, feel free. I find doing circles works best, like shading in circles works best when working with globes or orbs or spheres, whatever you want to call it, because you're working with a circular object, and so it would make sense to move your pencil in circles so that you get that circular pattern. And again, you're going very light with your pencil. We're not scribbling. We are going in small circles.
Your thing that you put on to do.
So yeah, we're just going in small, small, tiny circles. And we are including this but for this we go our lightest touch with our pencil. And you can do the whole blending thing where you take a paper towel or a blending tool or your finger and you smudge it to make it more seamless. That is totally up to you. I am not going to be doing that. I'm going to outline it a little bit further for you guys so that you can still clearly see where the highlight is. Again, you do not have to do this. I would actually suggest you don't, and you just keep a mental picture of how you had it or where you had it. But I'm just doing this for the purpose so that you guys can see for yourself that I am trying to keep the highlight there at all costs. Because otherwise, it ain't gonna look right. And again, this is just me moving in circles. This is not me scribbling. It's just moving in circles, up and down the circle. And again, we're trying to be as light as possible. You're not pressing down hard. There's no need to press down super uber hard. And we're just doing small, easy circles. If you want, you can try to move in curving lines to try to speed up the process. But I would suggest going over it with circles to keep the circular. Especially in the lighter areas. And again, this can all be done with your regular average number 2 pencil. I would not suggest doing this with a mechanical, as mechanicals can easily break, and you can't really get the same effect as you can with a pencil like this. And you're just doing circles. You're doing circles within a circle, within a circle. You're not scribbling, because there is no place for scribbling, unless you're into that kind of art texture. Personally, I'm not. And again, you can do lines to speed up the process. Just make sure they are curved lines. And you're keeping that highlighted area to keep it separate from your cast shadow, which I'm going to actually go back later on and make darker. And again, I'm going with the curve of the object, or globe, or sphere. I'm not going super hard. I'm just gradually moving my pencil over and around the image. And I'm making sure not to touch inside the highlighted area. Again, not going super hard, I'm just doing lines. So for instance, if you notice the object is curving downward, then you curve downward. If you see it's curving upward, curve upward. The middle area is where it gets tricky because I have this curve right here. And if you do a little circle, go ahead and ignore me. Try to do it as if it was radiating out from your circle, within your circle. But because I have this little curved area here, I'm going to have to move with the curve. So again, I'm not pressing very hard. I'm actually trying to go relatively soft with my pencil. And I'm going with the curve. This curve right here. And there we go. And you can blend it in and so forth. Actually, I'm going to make this part a little bit darker. But other than that, yeah, you should be fairly good to go. Yeah. That seems like it's getting there. Because it is an object, it still needs a shadow at the bottom. And again, I'm just doing little circles to make the cast shadow a bit darker. At this point, it's just touching up certain areas that you think need touching up. You should be relatively good once you think it's done. Again, this is just a rough, simple sketch. Not that important. But it's something to like give you a feel for the experience and so forth. And there you go. Your very own orb slash ball slash sphere slash globe slash whatever you want to call it. Yay! You did it! Congrats! Enjoy. Bye-bye.